Al-
2008, 9, 2009?
That's probably right.
Yeah, because I started subbing for Jake's when I was still in college.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Jake's moved.
That's almost 20 years.
Jesse!
Yeah, I know. He's like,
No! Okay. Well, when did we graduate?
I was 2009.
I was 2010.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Graduate from college?
Yeah.
I graduated in 91. Same year my band. Oh, great.
Yeah. You want me to like kind of get something going?
Unity. How are y'all today? Look, it's the fall. It's the fall weather. It's the cold weather. Please stand as you are able. Hey, y'all at home. Howdy. Stand as you are able. Good. No, I didn't see you do that. I'm pretending. 1, 2. This is the day. Join in. This is the day. This is the brand new day my Lord has made, and I call it good. And I call it good. Cause if the Lord has made it, I call it good, and so it is. Try that. This is the day. This is the day. This is the day. The brand new. This is the brand new day my Lord has made, and I call it good. Yes. I call it good. Why? Cause if the Lord has made it, I call it good, and so it is. Let's try it. This is the hour. This is the hour. This is the hour. This is the brand new hour my Lord has made, and I call it good. I call it good. But if the Lord has made it, I call it good, and so it is. All right, this is one of those swap the word out songs. So you could say, this is the church or whatever. So I'm going to ask you for some. This is the what is it? You can say this is the moment. What'd you say, Christopher? This is the soul, because Christopher has a brand new soul that the Lord has made, and I'm going to call it good. Let's do that. 1, 2. This is the soul. This is the soul. Brand new. This is the brand new soul my Lord has made, and I call it good. I call it good. Cause if the Lord has made it, I call it good, and so it is. That was good. Let me have another one. This is the what? This is the world. It is a brand new world. Every day. Actually, that's going to make me see a brand new world. Well done. 1, 2. This is the world. This is the world. Brand new. This is the brand new world my Lord has made, and I call it good. Yeah. I call it good. Cause if the Lord has made it, I call it good, and so it is. All right, give me one more. This is the weather. That's really fun. Actually, I like that. I'm going to do that every day. Mid-January snowstorm. This is the weather. 1, 2. This is the weather. This is the weather. Brand new. This is the brand new weather my Lord has made, and I call it good. I call it good. Because if the Lord has made it, I call it good, and so it is. Let's pray on that.
And so we take a moment to turn our attention within as we know the truth of our opening statement. Let's affirm it together. There is but one presence and one power in my life and in the universe, God the good, omnipotence.
All right, let's do a quiet one. We'll have it be, this is the prayer. 1, 2. This is the prayer. This is the prayer. This is the brand new prayer my Lord has made, and I call it good. I call it good. Cause if the Lord has made it, I call it good, and so it is. Yay! Now the day. This is the day. Whoa! This is the day, the brand new day my Lord has made, and I call it good. Cause it is. I call it good. Cause if the Lord has made it, I call it good, and so it is. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. Tell somebody. And so it is. Another. So it is. 2 more. So it is. No, 1 more. So it is. Last one. So it is. Well done. You have a seat.
Good morning. Welcome to Seattle Unity, both in-house and at home. So let's turn today to our vision statement. Let's affirm it together. We are an accessible and inclusive spiritual sanctuary for all ages and stages of life. We offer spiritual practices and a community that honors diversity and encourages self-empowerment. We co-create a world that works for all. Can I get an amen? All right. So is there anybody visiting us for the very first time? Would you raise your hand? And you're from Portland or Oregon? Welcome. Who else? Anybody visiting from out of town? Where are you from? Miami. Oh, yeah, you come. And you're local? Issaquah? All right, well, thank you for being with us. We invite you to come back if you're in town at least 3 times to check it out. And if you have any questions about Unity, you can ask any of us, and we'd be happy to answer you. All right, and if you're at home, please, if you're watching from home, please type in where you're watching from and any prayer requests that you may have. All right, so I want to invite you to stay following the service for the groups and activities fair. That will be happening on the 3rd floor. So if you're curious about the different things that are happening or how you can help make things happen around here, we invite you to go upstairs following the service. And I'd like those who have helped envision this and work on it just to stand up for a minute so we can thank you for that. You worked really hard and put in a lot of effort. So we will see you upstairs on the 3rd floor. I also want to let you know that starting September 22nd, Reverend Diane Robertson will be facilitating a prayer class. So if that's something that you're looking to deepen your prayer life and or just connect with people in a spiritual way in community, please register for that online. Okay, so lastly, we want to turn to our chat for the people at home. The chat question, which is, what do you do for spiritual renewal, or what do you do for renewal just in general? If it's not spiritual renewal, hopefully it's spiritual renewal. So that's the question that y'all get to answer for those of you who are on chat. And the rest of us, let's all stand and greet one another.
Stay standing as you are able. We're going to do another sing-along. Easy, very easy. This is by Iris Lambert, who is a woman I met like 25 years ago, and at that point she was an older hippie chick. I don't even know if she's still alive, but she wrote some fun stuff. Stay standing as you are able. I'll teach you these parts. It goes like this. Love is the healing power. Love is the healing power. Love is the healing power. Give your love away. The more you give, the more you give, the more you live, the more you give, the more you live, the more you give, the more you live. Give your love away. Pretty easy. Love. Love is the healing power. Love is the healing power. Love is the healing power. Give your love away. The more you give, the more you give, the more you live, the more you give, the more you live, the more you give, the more you live. Give your love away. All right, some of you already know this, but this is a spot in the service where I want you to move your body as much as possible. And for this song, let it be your spine, right? So you're going to give something that comes from the bottom of you up to the top, or giving something down to the earth that comes from the top to the bottom, or flailing, or doing your peanuts thing, or your disco thing, whatever it is. Get a little movement going. And if you're in a place of grief or you really don't feel like you can do that, you're allowed to just watch. You're totally allowed to do that. It's unity. You can be as different as you want to be. So love is the healing power. Let's give it a shot. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Love is the healing power. Love is the healing power. Love is the healing power. Give your love away. The more you give, the more you give. The more you live, the more you give. The more you live, the more you give. The more you live. Give your love away. Dance break. Ready? Okay. Second part. Ready? Love is, love is, love is. Give your love away. Try that. Love is, love is, love is. Give your love away. Keep going. Love is, love is, love is. Give your love away. You keep doing that. Love is the healing power. Love is the healing power. Love is the healing power. Give your love away. The more you give, the more you live. The more you give, the more you live. The more you give, the more you live. Give your love away. Give your love. Give your love away. Give your love away. Last one. Give your love away. Well done. Be seated. It's like a little moment of adult camp, adult summer camp. Boom diada, boom diada. That whole first part of our service is designed to help you wake up and shake things out so that you can get your blood moving, your breath moving. And we move into this next part of the service, which is much more contemplative. The center of this part of the service includes a silent meditation, which we will share together. I encourage you to get comfortable in your chair so that we can easily share that silence. Before we get there, we'll have a chant that we do together. My friend Mario will give us a little solo this morning, which I think is fabulous. But the first step comes for one of our community spiritual authorities. This is a wonderful human. If you don't already know him, I encourage you to say hi after the service. This is Mitch Hunter.
Good morning, everybody. Glad to see you. We got out our little warmer things. Some of us did. Today the reading is My Human Pride and My Pride Divine by Sri Chinmoy. My human pride feels that I can do everything. My divine pride, the pride that's surrendered itself to the will of God, knows that I can do everything only when I'm inspired, guided, and helped by the Supreme. My human pride wants the world to understand me, my love, my help, my sacrifice. My divine pride, which is the feeling of oneness all in God, does not wish the world to understand my selfless activities. It feels that if God understands me, knows my motives, then there can be no greater reward. My human pride is afraid of saying and ashamed of doing many things. My divine pride is not afraid of saying anything and not ashamed of doing anything. For it knows that God is at once the doer and the action. My human pride crushes humanity with man-acquired power. My divine pride liberates humanity with God-given power. To my human pride, the material world says, we shall either succeed or we shall fail and perish. To my divine pride, the spiritual world says, together shall we endeavor, together shall we succeed.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome one day, and that's today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome today.
Let's try that together. We shall overcome today.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome today.
We'll walk hand in hand. We walk hand in hand. We walk hand in hand. We walk hand in hand today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we walk hand in hand today. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we're not afraid. We are not afraid today. One more and we shall overcome. Quietly now. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome today. Oh, deep in my as me, where I sing, God is, where I dance, joy lifts my feet, where I pray, beauty's flowing freely in and out and through me, as me, where I doubt, God is the faith in me, where I cry, God is the comfort there, where I seek, God is the answer, here and now, forever and ever and ever. Where I speak, truth is, where I love, joy is my career, where I pray, God is playing boldly in and out and through me, as me, where I am, where I stand, where I play, where I work, where I sing, where I dance, my dance, I dance, where I go, where I pray, I take, I give, I live. God is, God is, God is, God is, God
Stephanie Ann Johnson.
Let's hear it for her again. All right. So today we're finishing up with the generation 1959 to approximately 1971. I know it's a little loose. It's the Generation Jones, but it's also the Pluto and Virgo generation. So for those of you that are just joining us for the first time, we're looking at the different generations over the last 250 years to see what is it we can learn both from the blessings and the gifts that they brought to us, as well as maybe the mistakes that were made. And so it's a way also of looking at how we are growing in consciousness and in awareness, how we are evolving as spiritual beings when we have this idea of looking back and seeing how far we have come. So during this time period, 5971, again, this is the first time that we saw the Earth from the moon, which brought us an awareness of holistic thought and the concept of oneness. So it's ironic that during a time of awakening to oneness, we were experiencing great divisions during this time period, if you remember. This was a time when there was a huge generation gap between young people and their parents, And this wasn't a divide between the states like it is now, or the red and the blue. This was mostly along the lines of the older and the younger generation. The younger generation started questioning traditional values that were held by their parents and their grandparents. And the older generation preferred established norms like loyalty to the government, to military service, and an orderly social order. And the younger generation embraced ideals of peace, of freedom of expression, and social justice. One of the reasons for this great division was people's feelings about the Vietnam War. So those that served and lived through World War II achieved a victory, and they stopped the horrors of Hitler. It was very easy. Good, bad, good, evil, right from wrong. There was no question that this was something that this war had to be engaged in, and it had to be fought. And so the World War II vets, they came home to ticker tape parades and big celebrations, and isn't it great that this is over? But when the Vietnam vets came home, there were no ticker tape parades. And at this time, the draft was still happening. And I remember in 1969, they started a lottery, a draft lottery. How many of you remember that? Yes, and my brother was of draft age, and in 1970, we were watching the lottery where they would pull out a birth date, and then they would pull out the number, and then you would know if you had like number 1 to 10, well, guess what? You better go sign up right now. But if you had a larger number, then you could wait. So my brother and his friend were over. And my brother's friend was one of these people who everything always went right for him, He was good looking. It was like everything just sort of fell into place for him. And sure enough, like one of the first 10 birth dates that came up was his, along with a number that was like 300 something. And we're like, well, of course. So then we're waiting and waiting and waiting for my brother's birthday and number to come up. And it was well into it, probably halfway through. Finally, his birth date was announced, followed by the number 289. So he didn't have to go. We all breathed a sigh of relief. But living through that time, the average age of a soldier being sent was 19 years old. 19. So I just finished reading the book Women by Kristen Hanna. Anybody read that? It's on the New York Times bestseller list. And it's a fictional account of the women who served in Vietnam. And the main character, and it's based on historical fiction, it's based on some real people, but the main character is a woman named Frankie, and she served in the Army Nursing Corps. So the book was reviewed by Sarah Collins, and she says, as green and inexperienced as the young men sent to Vietnam to fight, Frankie is overwhelmed by the chaos and destruction of the war, as well as the unexpected trauma of coming home to a changed America. If she was unprepared for the realities of war, there was no way she could have foreseen the reception that was waiting for her when she got home. Now, one of the things that was happening was the VA had, different programs for vets, and she would go and try to get help. And they'd say, but there were no women in Vietnam. And she's like, no, I was there. And it's like, yeah, we don't have anything for you because there were no women in Vietnam. But of course there were. So the women met with many of the same experiences that the men did, life-changing injuries, struggling with PTSD, and being shunned and not having much support. So Sarah Collins goes on to say, they'd seen the same horrors. They'd lost people they loved. They suffered injuries, been left traumatized, only to find themselves written out of history, their service erased. And for women like Frankie, there was nowhere to turn and no place where they belonged. So the book is really about her healing. It's about her story of how she comes back to herself, how she finds herself again. And I have to say that this book touched me deeply, and I think it's been touching a lot of people deeply, because I was at the airport when I was coming home from LA, and I had it, and people stopped me and went, oh, that book, I want to get that book. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to read it. I haven't read it yet, but it touched me deeply because it made me feel the pain for those who served there and didn't come home to a ticker tape parade. And there's lots of reasons for that, but the Vietnam vets were largely ignored by those who weren't there. And this book helped me see the suffering that those who were there and served, as well as the people of Vietnam, it helped me really see the suffering that they were going through and how it was unacknowledged. There's a touching scene at the end of the book where they're in Washington, D.C. in 1982, and it's when the Vietnam War Memorial was dedicated. It took till 1982. And so there's like this acknowledgement of them, and there's like this reunion that's happening there where this is being acknowledged, that people see us. So as we look through the generations, and the question becomes, so what do we learn from this, and what are the lessons that we are still working with today? So we've been covering this last month or so that from wounding can come healing, that we can be wounded healers. And from wounding and healing can come an awareness that can create something better. So the question I have is, how did this war create change in our society? Well, for the first time, we were able to see the atrocities of war because it was on the news every night. And it was like, for the first time, it's like, whoa, this is like not like the movies that we used to get to see. This is reality. The war then exposed the human cost of conflict, and it led to a greater public awareness and activism against war. And because we saw the suffering and the turmoil, we questioned how we engage with conflict, which can lead to a desire to more peaceful solutions. So even though it's like, yikes, what is this? It leads us to being better, to seeing things better. The Vietnam era saw a significant breakdown of long-standing social structures. So families actually became a place of conflict of the younger generations because they're disagreeing with their parents about war, about civil rights, about gender roles. So there was this great conflict that existed not in every family, was in my family, but in a lot of families. And yet this breaking down of structures was a necessary part of transformation, because society was being asked to evolve. We were being asked to evolve, to let go of outdated ways of thinking, of right and wrong and good and evil and black and white, and this is how it is, and to embrace a more inclusive and equitable future. So there's a questioning of authority also that started during this period, and that represented also a shift in consciousness, because it shifted toward personal responsibility and inner authority, like I'm listening to this voice within me. So I want to just take a little side trip here. It looks like a side trip, but it's not, because I want to touch on Joseph in the book of Genesis. So Joseph was one of the youngest sons of in his family. I think there were 11 or 10 older brothers, 10 older brothers. And Joseph was the favorite. God, they loved Joseph. And his father made him, the cloak of many colors. I mean, there's a musical written about it, right? Joseph in his multicolored coat or something. And his brothers are not happy because he's kind of a brat, and they want to get rid of him. So what they do is they send him out and they sell him into slavery, which you could do in those days. And they took his beautiful coat and they put lamb's blood all over it, and they brought it home to their dad, and they're like, I don't know what happened. I think he got eaten by a lion. It's sorry. And his father's grieving, and it's horrible. Meanwhile, Joseph's in prison, and he's this slave, but he keeps rising to a higher level through circumstance. And he ends up being like really close to the leader, and he's like a governor, if you will. And there's a famine in the land. And guess what? His brothers show up because they're hungry, they're starving, and they need food. So Joseph makes sure that they get it, but they don't know who he is. And then finally, when there's this reconciliation, and he says to them, I'm your brother, You know, I did not die. Here I am. And the line that most people know that he said was, you might have meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. So think about the times in your life when something happened to you and it was like, oh, you know, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to live through this? And yet something good came out of it, didn't it? Something good happened. So one of the good things that came out of Vietnam was Thich Nhat Hanh. So he is called the father of mindfulness, and he's responsible for bringing the mindfulness practice and perspective to the West. In fact, mindful has become kind of a part of our culture and our vocabulary. You know, be mindful of what you say, you know. Practice mindfulness. How many of you practice mindfulness meditation? I mean, really, yeah. So he was born in Vietnam, and he became a monk around the age of 16. And then he was in a monastery, and he'd be teaching. But of course, you know, he's a monk, so he's teaching and preaching against the war. In 1966, he comes to the United States, and it was kind of around that period where he meets with Martin Luther King, and he talks to him, and he goes, you know, I know you're this great civil rights leader, but you need to address this issue as well. And so Martin Luther King later then did give a speech about it. Martin Luther King also nominated Thich Nhat Hanh for the Nobel Peace Prize. He didn't get it, but he said this about him. He said, I do not personally know of anyone more worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize than this gentle monk from Vietnam. His ideas for peace, if applied, would build a monument to world brotherhood and to humanity. So what's interesting to me about this line is his ideas for peace, if applied. And so what did Thich Nhat Hanh do? He's created this whole system of this mindfulness meditation that more and more people are practicing, and that it is becoming a part of who we are in our evolution. He's written 130 books, and he founded Plum Village in France. Now, he was thrown out of Vietnam in 1979 because of his views that he had. And so he lived in exile, pretty much traveling or in France. And his wish, his desire was to go home. He really wanted to go home. And so at the very end of his life, when he's like late 80s, 90s, he's finally able to go home to Vietnam because that's where he wanted to end his life, and he died in 2022. So in one of his books called No Mud, No Lotus, he compares the idea of suffering as a necessary step in creating happiness. Now, we know in Buddhism, you know, that's part of the deal, is that you acknowledge suffering. And it's not just Buddhism. Emily Cady, who wrote Lessons in Truth, said that being in bondage to the flesh is the cause of our suffering, believing that we end here with this physical body. So Thich Nhat Hanh said that suffering is a part of life, and when we aren't happy, we might feel like something's wrong. Like, what's wrong with you? What do you mean you're not happy? You should be happy. We have this pursuit of happiness. He said if we focus on pursuing happiness, we may regard suffering as something to be ignored or resisted. We think of it as something that gets in the way of happiness. If we know how to use our suffering, we can transform it and we can suffer less. Knowing how to suffer well is essential to realizing true happiness. So, can you suffer well? It's a new concept. So what he does is he compares this to the lotus. And the lotus grows out of the mud. And the mud apparently really stinks. And it's dirty. And it's mushy. And it's filthy. But then out of it grows this beautiful lotus, which is beautiful and smells wonderful. So he's saying we need to embrace our suffering in order to experience happiness, in order to experience the lotus. He also said that we can get stuck in the mud. Have you ever been stuck in the mud? And this is when we perceive that everything's wrong, that we're failures, or everything's a failure, or everything's a disaster. We've been hearing that a lot lately, right? Everything's a disaster. So this is when we're in the mud, when you give in to those negative voices that's inside of you that says you're not good enough, you don't know enough, you're too young, you're too old, you're too whatever. And to be stuck in the mud is to give into despair. So, when have you been stuck in the mud? And how did you get yourself out? And are you in the mud right now? You know, I mean, I think we kind of go in and out of it. One of his teachings is impermanence. Nothing lasts. So when we're suffering, suffering's not going to last. When you're happy's not going to last either. So suffering is a kind of mud that we need in order to generate joy and happiness. So this is what he said about his time in Vietnam. When I lived in Vietnam during the war, it was difficult to see our way through the dark and heavy mud. It seemed like the destruction of the world would go on and on forever. Every day, people would ask me when I thought the war would end. And he knew that if he said, I don't know, oh, who knows, maybe never, he knew that that would simply add to their despair. So instead, he said, everything's impermanent, even war. And he says, and now the former mortal enemies are busy trading and touring back and forth, and people throughout the world enjoy practicing our traditions and teachings on mindfulness and peace. So what do we do? So when suffering arises, the first thing to do is to not run from it. It's to stop. It's to follow your breathing and just to acknowledge what is. I mean, what is mindfulness other than being here in the moment and acknowledging what's happening right now? Don't deny that you have uncomfortable emotions or you need to push them away. He said it's like being hit with an arrow. When you get hit with an arrow, it hurts. But then if you get hit with an arrow in the same spot, it hurts even more. And what happens is we get hit with something, we have an emotion, and instead of just dealing with that, we add to it. You know, Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body, where you just keep building on that whole thing. So we get hit with an arrow, we get hit with an emotion, and the first thing we want to do is we want to run away from it. We want to get away from the pain. So we fill up with junk food, with entertainment, with alcohol, with shopping, with anything we can do to keep our minds off of it. But guess what? It's still there. It's still waiting because it doesn't work. And we may succeed in numbing ourselves for a little while, but the suffering inside still wants our attention. He says, if we are afraid if we release the things that distract us, we will be overwhelmed by despair, anger, and loneliness, so we continue to run away. But with mindfulness, the feelings that have been painful and difficult transform into something beautiful and wondrous. From the mud to the lotus, it becomes a healing balm of understanding and compassion. So not running, but being conscious. Now, It's kind of can sound like a little contradiction because he's like, don't get lost in the mud. But then he's also saying, make sure you don't run from it and make sure you feel it. So how do you do that? I think you talk to a friend. You know, you call somebody up and vent maybe to kind of let it go. Listening to music. You know, music is amazing because it can match your mood. If you're sad, listen to something really sad and let it come out. And there's so many ways. But of course, in mindfulness, it's through the breath. So Thich Nhat Hanh says simply what we need to do is breathe in. I know suffering is there. Breathing out, I say, hello to my suffering. To treat it like a baby, to treat it like a child with loving care and kindness. So we know that happiness is impermanent, but so is suffering. So in order for happiness to be extended and renewed, we have to learn how to feed the happiness. Nothing can survive without food, and that includes happiness. It needs nurturance. It needs energy. And your happiness can die if you don't know how to nurture it. Water the good seeds and refrain from watering the negative seeds. So again, how do you do that? Focus on the good in your life. It's a basic unity principle, right? The law of mind action. To stop and go, okay, so what is good right now? What am I grateful for that's happening right now? And to begin to shift and to turn that energy and focus on what is good in your life. And as Thich Nhat Hanh said in Vietnam, with everything happening, he goes, we kept working for peace. No matter what was happening, we kept working for peace. And if you're upset about the political climate right now, vote. Find ways to reach out, right? Just do something. So as we explore the generational divide from 59 to 71 and bring it to a close, let's remember that every area of conflict and transformation, including today, holds the seeds of healing and growth. So the gap between the older and the younger generation during that time seemed like it was an insurmountable divide, which each side clinging to their own truths. But out of that struggle came new ideas and a broader understanding of humanity. So just as Joseph's brothers meant his betrayal for evil, God used it for good. And so did the painful lessons of the Vietnam era grow and bring us to a greater awareness. This period pushed us to question the cost of war, the structure of authority, and our responsibilities to one another. It led to shifts in society, opening the door for peace, mindfulness, and justice that continue to shape our world. So again, Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us that we can't escape suffering. So let's transform it. The mud of hardship, whether personal or collective, is necessary for the lotus of joy and understanding to bloom. So in the face of today's challenges, whether generational, political, personal, may we remember the lessons of the past. From wounding can come healing. From conflict can come compassion. And from the mud of suffering can arise the lotus of a more peaceful and just world. Thich Nhat Hanh suggests when you awake in the morning, you say, I have 24 hours to live. I vow to live them deeply and learn to look at the beings around me with the eyes of compassion. So may we continue to awaken and deepen in our evolvement as spiritual beings. Amen. So we come to that time in our service where we share our tithes and our love offerings. So you can give by cash or check. You can give. Our text to give number is on the screen. I find that the easiest. No matter how you give, recognize that this is a spiritual practice and that as you give, you are creating a vacuum from which to receive. Because it's as we give, we receive. So let's affirm our statement together. I give willingly, joyfully, and lovingly, knowing that God is the constant source of my supply. I give with graciousness and receive with gratitude.
This is a tune called Up Above My Head, and it's by Rance Allen. There's a lot of versions of this one, but this is one of my favorites. Oh yeah. Set up above my head, I hear music in the air. Up above my head, oh yeah, now I hear music in the air. I really do believe, I really do believe, yeah, I really do believe there's a God somewhere set up above my head. I hear music in the air. I really do believe. I really do believe. I really do believe. There's a God somewhere. All right, we're going to think about it. Want you to think about it. That's right, we're going to be mindful. Come on and think about it. That's right, come on. Sister Olivia, let's go and think about it. Come on, Brother David on the keys. Let's go and think about it. We got Jesse over there on the drums. Come on and think about it. You can sing. Come on, we need your voice. Let's go and think about it. Oh, that's right. Everybody say, let's think about it. Now let's pray about it. Come on and pray about it. Tell your neighbor. Tell your neighbor. Let's go and pray about it. That's right. Think of someone you could call to pray about it. All together. Let's go and pray about it. Right here. 2, 3, 4, 1. I really do believe. I really do believe. I really do believe. There's a God somewhere.
Stephanie Ann Johnson.
And so chaplains Melissa's going to come on up and she's going to join us. And I just wanted to point out, Melissa was on our board and she was on the SUV team that helped with envisioning our building. But she also was on the board of the aquarium and helped them with their new renovation. So she's pretty amazing. All right, so let's put a final blessing on our offering. But first, I want to say hello to those who are watching. And Casey, Christopher, who's in Auburn, my friend Nancy, who's in Chicago, my stepdaughter Bridget in Coeur d'Alene, Mark in Moses Lake, my friend Robbie in Linwood, Lori in West Seattle, my other friend from high school, Kathy in Skokie, Illinois. Patricia is at the Yakima Reservation today. Femi Nam is in Shasta. MJ in Greenwood. Margaret's in Corvallis. Marcia Rattan's in Wedgwood today. Susan's in Columbia City. Louise in West Lynn. Susan, John, Eli, Ben are in Vashon. Debbie's in Olympia. And Dana and Faith, of course, in Seward Park. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of this. And so let's just take a moment as we dedicate and consecrate these gifts to the will, the work, and the way of the living Spirit of truth. And we know that whatever you have given, we are grateful for and know that it returns to you 1,000-fold. So we turn to our prayers for healing, and I invite you to take a mindful breath as we send healing to Amy, to Marcia, to Mike. And we hold for peace and guidance for Cole and for Penny. We see continued healing for Sonia, for Francis. We hold in the light and bless Scott, Rich, Donnie, Brooke, Bill, Rich, Gus, Mike, and Susan. We hold and we bless Noelle for healing of her knees and lungs. We hold and we bless Diana and see divine order for Alan and Ellen, Anne and daughter. We bless Sabrina. We also hold in our prayers Bridget, Anne, Don, Moma, and for those suffering from wildfires in the western U.S., those affected by flooding in Central Europe, as well as Ukraine, Gaza, Israel, Syria, Sudan, Louisiana, and those in our community that are healing from COVID, Greg, Mike, and Diane, Lynette. And of course, we open the door for anyone that you know that needs their name spoken now. Please speak them now. And so we seal these prayers with our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Yes, it is, Heather. Let's sing a closing song together. Stand again as you are able. If you'd like to hold hands, you can do that, but get permission from your neighbor. It's a consent place here, you know. I want to say thank you to all of our the congregants and volunteers that helped with the service this morning. This morning you had Francis, Mario, and Sonia. You know they're a family. This is child, that's parent. Isn't that nice? That's so sweet. Our fabulous band, David, Jesse, and Olivia, and our amazing guest, Stephanie Ann Johnson. Please go to their website. There are some shows coming up and music available there. And Stephanie Ann is one of my most favorite local musician celebrities, and I want them to make a living. So let's do that. I'll see you upstairs at the activities thing. I'll be on the outside. I'll be in the there's a patio as well. Don't forget us on the patio. Let's sing All Is Well.